But is that the better role for him? Is that going to be the better opportunity? He doesn't know because there's a lack of communication. Silence isn't just neutral. It's actually what I think is the negative thing in the market at the moment. Yes, we've got a skill shortage, but we're making it worse with the friction of lack of communication, lack of clarity on how the process works sometimes. If you don't get the brief right, you're sending people off on a course that you're not going to get an end result. So I think people have just got to be a bit more careful about their expectations of what they're going to find in the marketplace, because otherwise the vacancies, will end up open for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Time kills all if you're not careful. Good people don't stay around. If you're not communicating with them and just letting them know, even if that role's gone and they've not been chosen, they'd rather know than not know. A good recruitment process is like a pre-start meeting. The leader there gives clarity. Everyone knows their job in that process and what they're trying to achieve. And I think sometimes companies, unfortunately, see recruitment or hiring people as an admin process as opposed to something fundamental to support their business.
Welcome back to another episode on the Gold Room Podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. I have Nick Sutton from Keystone People Solutions. Hiring in Western Australia done right. Mate, thanks very much for joining me.
No, thank you very much for the invite.
Excellent. Look, we, as you know, we start every episode with the life and the times, mate. So take us back to when you're a young tacker.
Oh, it's a long time ago. Right, okay. So born in the UK, in Manchester, in the 70s.
Sunny Manchester.
Sunny Manchester. Lovely Manchester. Look, fairly humble beginnings. Mum and Dad owned a news agency. And everything was, going really well. But I think life turned on its head when I was about 6. Unfortunately, my dad suddenly died. He got blood poisoning.
Got blood poisoning?
Yeah, from a cut. And
wow, sepsis.
Sepsis, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
what was that like as a young fella, mate?
It was
I don't want to dwell on it, but you've had obviously a couple of years to work through it.
A couple of years to work through it, yeah.
What was it like, 6 years old?
Yeah.
Losing your dad?
Yeah. It's tough.
You got other siblings?
No.
So just you and your mum?
Only me, my mum, and my grandparents at the time.
Yeah.
Look, it was tough. I think a lot of kids, you sort of block it out. And I think I was probably guilty of that as a kid to a certain extent. And then you sort of deal with it over time.
Do you got fond memories of when your dad was around? Or did they become
faded? Yeah. And I think...
Photos of him?
Yeah, I've got photos,
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I've got photos. He was a musician, part-time musician in a jazz band as well.
Wow, awesome.
So...
what did he do for a crust?
They ran the news agency.
Yeah, okay.
But I think he was...
He did as well, both?
Yeah, he was an accountant by training.
Yeah.
But they both ran the news agency. What happened then was, which it sounds like a tragic story, but my mum fell ill within 12 months. And she had quite a rare illness called gross papilledemia, which is basically pressure building up in the brain. Oh. And it was spotted actually by an optician because the lenses were getting squashed. But what it meant was she had to give up the news agency. So we moved in with my grandparents. So we moved into a 2-bedroom flat in Manchester with my grandparents. And then she was in and out of hospital for, it was a couple of years. She had to have neurosurgery. She's still got a scar that runs from there down there where she's got a shunt to drain fluid from her cranial, your brain, basically, your skull. And it was quite a hectic time as a kid. But I think...
so 7 years old, you're dealing with...
Yeah, both of those things.
Wow.
But you settle into a routine, and...
School would have helped?
Yeah, school, grandparents.
Playing sport, would have played a bit of footy?
Bit of soccer,
Mate,
definitely
it's
soccer.
Football.
I know.
They call it soccer, yeah. But...
That's why I call it the differential. Yeah, a lot of those things helped, and having good neighbours and family friends. and life carried on. You know, you carry on as a kid. I think you've just got it. I think having lived with my
resilience even back then.
Well, I think living with my grandparents for up until about the age of 12, you know, they were that stoic generation, the war generation. It was, you know, keep calm and carry on.
Yeah.
And that rubbed off onto me, I think, in lots of ways. There's that resilience, and, you know, life is going to throw crap at you. And, you know, you can either deal with it or you can crumble.
Yep.
And I think they taught me how to deal with that.
Beautiful.
We got a lucky break when I was about 12. My mum got an opportunity to run an old people's home, which was in a big old Victorian house just around the corner. And we lived in basically the attic, which was the old servant quarters. And I lived there from the age of about 12 to 18, 19. And look, mum was working hard shifts, 12-hour shifts as the sort of matron.
Yep.
And then doing some nights and so on and so forth. So I learned a lot of sort of self-reliance, but equally all the personalities, you know, the old people, the nurses, I think they all sort of helped ground me as a person. And, you know, they say it takes a village to bring up a child. Yep. I think I was brought up in a village. So I had my grandparents, we had the family friends, had the nurses, and even some of the old people in the home, you know, see me as like a grand.
Did you ever go and ask them any stories?
Yeah. There was a few. There was one old guy who was an old World War II fighter pilot, and he would get very, very scared if there was a storm. And the reason being is he'd flown through a storm and nearly lost his life. He
bit of PTSD.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even in his 80s or whatever he was then. So, yeah. But
they did
some real characters.
Then,
they did. But I think what it taught me is that, you know, everyone's got something going on in their life. But you've just got to get on with it and, you know, do as best as you can.
Yeah.
And I think that's what formed me as a young adult.
Yep.
At school, I wanted to become a primary school teacher.
Okay.
I was mediocre at best at academia, but I did come out with my O-levels and A-levels and wanted to go to college to get my degree, etc. And then life sort of took a turn. You know, you get to that fork in the road, and do I suddenly go to college or do I just experience a bit of life? And so I went down the experience life role, got a job in sales, and was rubbish at it. I'm really not a salesman. I'm really not. But it did lead me into a career into recruitment. So it was a stepping stone. And had a great career in the UK for 10 or so years in recruitment.
Working for a large or a medium company?
It was a medium company that grew into a large company.
Oh, awesome.
And through that, I got the opportunity to come to Australia in 2005.
With that company?
With that company.
Wow.
Yeah,
awesome.
To grow the business out there.
Who was the company?
Well, that was a company called Furcroft.
Okay.
Who subsequently amalgamated with another agency now as well.
Yep.
But it was great to experience that growth from what was, I suppose, a family business into a multinational global. You know, for an example, when I came out here in Australia to Perth, you know, the business was turning over around 20 million. Within 10 years, it was doing 220 million.
Wow. Fantastic.
And that was down to the mining boom, but also the LNG boom as well.
Yep.
And a great experience for me.
So you come out here with a wife?
I did.
Kids?
One kid at the time, and then another one came along in 2007. And they're great. I love my two boys.
2 boys, how old are
Yeah,
they?
so 24 and 18 now.
Oh, wow. Nearly ready to... Wow.
Still living at home.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was just going to say, nearly ready to leave the coop, but probably
not quite.
Not in this current market too either.
I can't. Yeah, the 24-year-old would love to.
Yep.
You know, he works hard. He works.
What does he do?
He works in a rigging yard. He's basically a yard assistant.
Yep.
But wanting to do an electrical apprenticeship, and struggling to get an opportunity to do that.
Has he gone to TAFE and done some of the?
No, that's his next step. He's going to go and do the pre-courses.
Yeah.
But if there's anybody out there looking for electrical apprentices,
Well, look, trades are the next big thing.
well, that's it.
They've always been the big thing.
Yeah, but
you know,
it'll continue to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so look, he's busy saving money so that he can get enough for a deposit on a house.
Beautiful.
So
That's the best thing to do.
he's
Stay
driven.
at home with mum and dad and bloody
Yeah.
save.
Yeah.
Save.
He's driven, and the 18-year-old is very driven.
What's he want to do?
He wants to join the Australian Navy.
Awesome.
Yeah, so he's doing that next year. He's got all his applications done.
They're singing out for anybody.
Yeah.
They probably need all the help they can get too.
Yeah. So anyway, that's them. They're good boys, solid. I think both me, my current wife, and my ex-wife have done a good job of bringing them up.
Oh, wow, that's awesome to hear. That's bloody awesome.
I'd like to think anyway.
Yeah. Look, proof's in the pudding when they have their own wives and children, and you know.
So worked for all the large sort of recruitment organisations, and then.
Did you have a favourite? Did you have a favourite recruitment company that you worked for?
I'm still quite nostalgic about when I worked for Furcroft.
Okay.
And the first agency I worked for, which was called MDS Consultants back in Manchester, you know, they trained me up and taught me what was good and what was bad and what was ugly.
Yep.
So I'd say those two, to be fair.
Yeah, okay.
But obviously my favourite is Keystone.
Yeah, of course. Mate, beautiful segue. Let's get into Keystone.
Yeah, okay.
When did you start?
We started nearly 2 years ago now.
Yep.
And providing that sort of HR and recruitment solution, which is quite unique in the market. Off the back of my wife's experience as a HR manager for 20 years, and my experience in recruitment for 35 years now. And it's been a great start to the business. First year was a real success, and we made a profit, which was unusual, which was
awesome.
a bit of a surprise to us.
Yep.
And now we're well into our second year and starting to grow.
Beautiful.
And grow the sort of services that we provide, which is what we wanted to do.
What are you seeing from your position in the WA market right now?
That's a good question. The best analogy I can give you is you've been to the Cal Super Pit, yeah?
For sure.
All right, good.
Many times.
Okay, so you go to that viewing platform and you look down and you see everything looks like it's moving perfectly. You know, you've got haul trucks, they're digging out the earth, the ore's coming out, blah, blah, blah. But if you sort of delved a bit deeper and went into the supervisor's room and you look up and there's a whiteboard there and there could be 5, 6 positions marked on that board, all circled in red, yeah, and they've been vacant for a month, yeah, that's what I see, is that is then putting pressure on everyone else who's doing the role, because those roles are being split out amongst everybody else.
Great analogy. So does that mean that there's a skills shortage in Western Australia, do you think?
Absolutely. I think we all know there is a skill shortage, but I think there's other things that are causing friction and problems as well. Sometimes we don't get the start of it right. Yeah. So it's a bit like a geologist, okay? He sends a drill team out to the wrong location.
Not having a job for long.
No, but the drill team do their job, they do the drilling, they get the core samples, they come back and the ground, the core isn't what they expected. It's a bit like doing recruitment, okay? Bear with me on this.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
So,
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, if you don't get the brief right, you're sending people off on a course that you're not going to get an end result.
Yep.
So I think people have just got to be a bit more careful about their expectations of what they're going to find in the marketplace, because otherwise the vacancies, will end up open for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Do you think we need to get bring back the 457 visas?
The 482 works.
Is that the new 457? Okay.
Yeah, that's the new 457, but it's so much more expensive than a 457. Okay. So the 457 was about 2.5K. Yeah.
But that's for the employer to bring in.
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever labour
Yeah.
they want. I remember
Yeah.
years ago, 2014 or 2015, big recruitment drives. There's a company called CPC in the Goldfields,
Yeah.
and they sent recruitment teams over to London,
Yeah,
over
yeah.
to Europe,
Yeah.
and they were going from I don't know. Look, I'm going to say town hall to town hall, but they were going from centre to centre,
Yeah.
and just saying, "Come work for us." People were selling up their house, selling up everything,
Oh.
and coming over, and they were. I think they
Oh,
were promised some bloody work and come to Perth, and some of them ended up in the Goldfields, and that wasn't quite the Perth that they were looking
Expecting. Yeah. Look, a lot of the EPCMs did that back in the 2000s and the 2014 on 2012 onwards, really. They would go to London, Manchester, Aberdeen. They go to South Africa.
Yeah, that's right.
And go on massive
Ireland.
recruitment, and Ireland, on big recruitment campaigns. Hence why we've got so many English, Irish, Scottish.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. They're all out there bloody
working hard here now.
Yeah. Could probably throw a
I
couple
think
of bloody Kiwis in the mix too. You know, they come over work hard.
I think the government have made it harder with the 482.
Yep.
It's
How much more expensive?
3-4 times more expensive.
Yeah, companies aren't going to.
So companies
why
aren't.
Did they do that?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
Did the government think maybe the government thought we've got enough?
Yeah, I think that was it. I think that was the thought process is we're going to change it.
Make it difficult. If you really want that person, and
then,
I guess the more expensive, maybe, I'm just a sparky, but I wonder if the more expensive it is to bring in a 482, maybe the better caliber of employee it would be. So if you really want that person, they're going to have to be bloody great because you're going to be paying them a fair wallop.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to pay us a fair wallop too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
I think that might have been the principle behind it. Whether it works, you'd have to ask the people who are listening into this podcast, because I think if you were to do if you were to canvass all the mining companies and mining services and industrial services companies that experienced the 457 to the 482, I think they would go back to the 457
in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. But I do think that is an issue, and that does affect.
I think there's a little bloody loophole that. So I wouldn't say exploiting. Maybe I just did, but with backpackers. So heaps of backpackers are coming in at the moment.
Yep.
I've seen so many Frenchies up in the Goldfields. And actually, I've seen so many people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And what do you do? Are you here on a working visa? I mean, tourist visas. They're here on a tourist visa, and then they're doing a bit of remote work.
Yeah, so they can get an extra year onto the 2 years tourist visa. But they can only work in one location at one company for 6 months. But generally, they're doing the unskilled labour, so they're doing peggies,
trades assistants.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of. Actually, I spoke to someone who was saying that gas testing and things like that. So sentry type work. Yeah,
that's right. So we still have that shortage in that skilled area.
What do we
Whether
do?
it be trades or, I wish I had the full answer to that. But I think that's a government thing as much as anything else.
Like the wages. People might hate me for saying this, but the wages in the mining industry are astronomical. They're huge. How do you keep paying? I saw in the news a couple of weeks ago, BHP Sparkies were
they're out on strike for.
They were going to be striking for. They wanted $500,000 or $400,000 a year.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're on now, but far out. If I was on $400,000 a year as a bloody Sparky, I'd be bloody wrapped.
I know. Yeah,
I mean they're just Sparkies, surely.
Yeah, but what it does is it creates a two-speed economy. So what you've got the people involved in the mining industry and the people who aren't, and they're paid down here, and the mining people are paid up here.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a quick fix for it, because it's not as if you can pare that back completely. If a recession hits, then you'll find that those rates will come down.
Mm.
Yeah. But at the moment, it's supply and demand.
Oh, most
And
definitely.
the demand is outstripping the supply. So what do people throw? They throw the dollars at it sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think candidates, yes, obviously candidates in the market, they want good money. But I think there's other things that they're looking for
What
as
are
well.
they looking for?
Well, I think honesty. If you get a new worker, let's say, a jumbo operator who's going underground, okay, they'll go through their induction, their onboarding, they'll fill in a lot of paperwork. But I think the most important thing they're looking for is honesty as to what the job is actually going to be like and what the hazards are going to be like and what is a shift going to look like.
Yeah. And saying that, hard to, unless you're doing it, and look, it's quite difficult working remote, but you can't just say, oh, mate, can I turn up and have a look at what it's going to be like?
No, that's the problem.
I've years ago, I saw that with people working in processing plants.
Yeah.
There's some, you go and work on a brand new joint and everything's looking smick. It's nice, clean. Everything's nice to work on. But then you go to a bloody, which is most of them in the goldfields, is time has ruined a lot of these places.
Yeah.
But it's also not just time. It's the process.
Yeah.
And I-beams are looking a little bit haphazard, and the plant starts to look like it's falling apart, and they've got maintenance, but the people also look at what's the camp like. Well,
Exactly.
You can't you can't just turn up and have a look at some camps. Well, you can, and I have seen this where people go, they turn up, they get the job, and this must be difficult for people like you. It's difficult for the mining companies.
That's it.
Where you get someone turn up, and while the money might be great, but if there's no internet at the camp, people start complaining. And I've personally seen people turn up to a site and then look around and just say, nah, this isn't for me, drive me back into town.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of investment.
You only have to look at some of the mining companies now and the sites, the campsites.
I'd bloody go and work for Chris Ellison up in that bloody mineral resources.
He was the example I was going to say, that they have spent a lot of money and research and looking into the market as to what candidates really want.
The research must be simple. Look after your people.
But
then, how do you, at what point is a Nescafe coffee machine in your room with a double bed? Bloody hell.
Netflix.
I've never, look, most camps have Netflix. Or I would say,
but it's
all
the
camps.
facilities
Yeah,
around
for sure.
it which are amazing. The gyms, the swimming pools, the tennis courts, the basketball, and so on and so forth. So I think Crikey, I'm sure if you spoke to somebody who was in the mining industry 40 years ago,
they were living in caravans, mate.
Yeah, no, they would just say these are real spoiled people now.
Yeah.
But it's the expectations now. The expectations been set so high. And I think that's, part of it. But I do think that people want honesty, clarity, and communication.
Yep, definitely.
Throughout that process. So, I think that's another thing that some companies do really well is the communication piece in that hiring process. But a lot of what I see is that's missing. So, the example, you've got a guy who's finishing a contract. He's up in the Qantas lounge, due to fly out at 7 a.m. and he's getting a text message from a company that he sent his CV to, 5 days ago. And they're just saying, look, you're in the process. We'll be back in touch by Friday. There's another company that he sent to 5 days ago. He hears nothing from. Now, which company do you think he would choose?
Obviously the first one.
Right. Okay. But is that the better role for him? Is that going to be the better opportunity? He doesn't know because there's a lack of communication. And, silence isn't just neutral. It's actually what I think is the negative thing in the market at the moment. My feedback from candidates is if they don't hear anything, then that's a negative.
Yeah, but your role must also be quite difficult because it's not just like you will be following up with your candidate, with the candidate, right? But mining companies are taking their sweet time. It's not always, you can be doing as good a job as you can.
Yeah.
But if the mining company's HR team is dragging the chain, and that because they'll reach out to recruitment companies,
Yeah.
right? But they're also doing their own internal recruitment, and so they'll ads on Seek and what have you. So they'll be doing their own, and if they can't find, they reach out to recruitment companies and try and find the best candidate.
Yeah.
But from my experience, some mining companies can get back to you and bloody. I remember years ago going for a job or applying for a job with St. Barbara, and up at St. Barb's plant, fixed plant, and my resume went in, and I
Yep.
did a bloody phone interview,
Yep.
and then
Nothing.
oh no, so I got a follow up
Yep.
and spoke to the bloody electrical supervisor, and maybe like 2 months later, are you still interested in the job? So someone I don't know, I can only think that maybe someone got the job and then they turned up there and like, nah,
Nah.
or whether it be they said no or they didn't pass their probation. So look, maybe we'll take that shitty one over there.
Well, you've answered your own question. What impression did that give you?
Oh, I was just like, no. I was just like, nah, mate, I'm staying
There you go.
where I am. I just stayed where I was.
There you go. So what I'm trying to say there is that, yes, we've got a skill shortage.
Yep.
Yeah. But we're making it worse with the friction of lack of communication, lack of clarity on how the process works sometimes. Look, the bigger miners, they've spent a lot of time and effort to, put in processes and I'm sure it runs smoothly. But
I'm sure it doesn't.
you're dealing with people at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So it's not an exact science, but I think people just want to know what's going on.
Definitely.
And I think that's where we let the whole thing, the whole recruitment process down sometimes, is that radio silence and what do they call it? Ghosting now.
Oh my God. You've been spending too much time on Instagram or something. So is that why you think businesses are struggling?
I think it can be, yeah. I think it just adds to the issue of a skill shortage, along with, not ensuring that, you've got a good brief on what you're really looking for, what are the essentials, and what are the nice to haves.
Yep.
So I think that's an important piece. But, time kills all if you're not careful.
For sure, yeah.
And, good people don't stay around. And if you're not communicating with them and just letting them know, even if that role's gone and they've not been chosen, they'd rather know than not know.
For sure. So is that what's losing good candidates?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What can companies be? Look, obviously, it speaks for itself. Like it's communication, right? I was about to say, I answered my own question.
Yeah.
What should companies be doing differently? And that's just communicate with everyone.
I think you've even got to go back a step. That's part of it.
Okay,
But you've worked on projects, yeah?
for sure.
Okay. So you have a pre-start meeting, yeah, for a project?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the worst pre-start meeting you've been at? I'm interviewing you now.
Oh, look, mate, I don't know where to start. I
Right.
don't, like
Okay.
an unorganized pre-start. Sometimes there's, dysfunction within the maintenance and electrical, and, they're not working together. And
Okay.
so that's communication.
That's it. So what I'm trying to say is that a good recruitment process is like a pre-start meeting. The leader there gives clarity. Everyone knows their job in that process and what they're trying to achieve. And I think sometimes companies, unfortunately, see recruitment or hiring people, let's say hiring people, as an admin process, as opposed to something fundamental to support their business.
Yeah, okay.
It's pushed to the side sometimes. And this is what always makes me sort of smile to myself, is that companies will spend a lot of time and effort and money to pick a piece of machinery, a new drill rig or a new dump truck. Yeah, they get the spec right. They know exactly what tonnage it's going to haul. They know what kilometers they'll get out of it, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to recruitment, Do they do that? Do they do similar? You know, do they make sure that the process is right?
I think they'd try to, but
Yeah, but it's time.
exactly, it's time, and how much time do you put into looking at you want to get the best candidate for the role, right?
Yeah.
But if you look for too long, mining CEO told me, hire fast, fire faster.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, I won't say the name of who it was, but it
No.
makes sense. And that's for that head office type
Yeah.
carry on.
Yeah.
Like get them in, but in the current market, if you're a drilling company, you want to be looking at who's had time on a rig and try and get them in and see how, because once again, they're working. A lot of those drillers working out remotely. Are they going to tie in with the team well? There'd be so many different personalities. It'd be hectic.
Yeah. But do they give the time to look at that, or do they just hire and go, we'll just see how it works out?
Well,
and then
if there's not enough labour,
yeah,
what do you do?
True.
If there's not enough labour, you're going to have to. Another one is bums on seats, right?
And that's what happens.
Some companies just end up going bums on seats. What does your business do differently than just doing the age-old bums on seats? How are you working in with your clients to make sure that you're getting them, that you're making sure that you get them the right bloody people?
So we go back to that start.
I don't have that as a question, but it's fucking good.
No, it's a good question.
Yeah.
We go back to that start. So like the pre-start meeting, we look at the process. So we'll go into a company, work with the senior leadership team, look at their hiring process, onboarding process, and get that right first. Yep. Work out a good process that's agile, that's going to work for that organization. Work with them to develop the right policies around that, and the right guidelines for hiring managers. We can provide advice as to interview techniques, those sorts of things. So I think if you don't get that right, that's where problems can occur, and you do hire the wrong person, and then that causes friction again. Like I said, it's not an exact science, but if you can narrow all of that down as much as possible, then that's what we do in the first step.
Yep.
So it's a bit like a hiring health check, for one of a better phrase.
I like that.
And using another sort of analogy is that, you buy a truck, okay, your haul truck, dump truck, whatever you want to call it, or a piece of machinery, you put it on a maintenance program, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And you look at that maintenance program and see if it's working. Weekly, monthly.
Daily greasing.
Yeah. But how often do you look at how you hire people?
Probably once they're hired and onboarded, you don't look at them again.
Yeah. So when things aren't going right, why don't you relook at the hiring process? Yeah. Amazing. And get that expertise in. You'd get an expert in maintenance if a ball mill went down, that's costing you time and money, isn't it?
Definitely.
All right. So you get in the maintenance experts to look at it, to get it sorted and move on. Yeah. And get it up and running as fast as you can. A vacancy is a bit like a ball mill not running. Yeah. But people don't see the value of that vacancy necessarily being filled by the right person.
They would if they put it down to $150,000 an hour.
Exactly.
Or $250,000 an hour.
And that's the crazy part. I find that businesses don't always put a value on that person being in the business.
Yep.
And then the expectations of that role sometimes are just passed to others, like I said before. And what that causes is more pressure.
Them. Yeah.
Pressure.
Yeah, for sure. Mate, look, we've spoken about the mining companies, what they need, what they're doing, but let's talk about the candidates.
Okay.
From your experience, what do the candidates actually care about? I know you said communication, but it's not just about that initial stage. What do they want? What are they talking to you about?
That's a good question. And it does vary from, discipline to discipline and person to person. It does focus a lot on that openness of, companies are very good at selling themselves,
I
and
see the
selling a
ads on
dream,
TV.
and selling a dream. Yeah, selling a dream of what it's going to be like to work for them. I think a candidate in this market now just wants that honesty of, all right, it is going to be tough. Yeah, all right, it is going to be hard. You know, we've got some real big projects underway, and you are going to be working X amount of time, and you're going to be in a team of 4, which should be a team of 6 or 7. But we're doing our best to get it to a team of 7. But you're going to be, you know, stretched a little bit, and it's that honesty. Like I said, honesty and communication, I think, are so key. Yeah, money's important, and leadership. I think they're looking for strong leadership, and that comes back to that sort of, and very much these days, the modern leader, you know, has to be very sort of clear, calm, and open and honest with their teams.
Yep. Well, you've actually covered just then. So one of my questions is tough roles versus poor messaging.
Yeah,
and you've said that's exactly it.
That's exactly it.
You know, if they can't get it across, you know, it is mining is tough.
It's tough.
It's hard out there.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to it, or you don't know, or certainly a lot of the, you know, newbies, greenies coming in, if you don't know what to expect, you get there and you're a little bit shell shocked. Oh, you know.
Well, how many companies have you worked with, let's say, where you've seen a newbie come in? Have they buddied them up with somebody?
Some
do, some don't.
Some do.
Yeah.
And usually, you know, they get a little walk around for a week. Certainly electrical, they do.
Yeah.
They buddy up for you know. But then there's a lot of, it's all different. So many different companies do everything differently.
Yeah.
Some do it really well. And I think maybe mining companies need to be communicating with other mining companies saying, hey, listen,
this is best practice.
This is what we're doing. This is what's, and even if they have an open table discussions, they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all blowing up rocks, pulling them out of the ground, smashing them up, running them through a processing plant, pulling out what they want at the end, and then selling it.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
So some companies that are doing it well should be talking to, or probably the smaller companies should be saying, hey, going and saying, hey, listen, we're struggling with this.
Yeah.
How do we improve?
Yeah.
What can we be doing? You've gone through it. You've got 10,000 staff. We've got 200 staff.
Yeah.
You know?
No, agreed.
Once again, communication.
Agreed.
We look at us solving all the mining problems of the world. Mate, tell me what the best businesses do differently. That's a great segue.
Oh, great segue. What do the best businesses do? Clear planning. Yeah. Clear expectations. Yeah. Clarity on roles. Move swiftly. So hire fast. But they can have the confidence to do that because they've ticked all those other boxes before that. It's not just hiring for hiring's sake. They know what they're hiring because they've ticked all these boxes beforehand, and they know that the end result is what they want.
So that's what your business is doing.
That's how we're helping organisations. Yeah, is with that front end.
Yeah, the HR and the recruitment.
Yeah,
what a great combo.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's where I've seen things fall down over years and years. You know, even with some of the major companies in WA, you know, the hiring process can slow down. Is just helping companies work out what's going to work for them. And look, it's not a cookie cutter approach. Every company is different because of the size, their organisation structure, you know, the services they're providing, the business that they're in.
Yeah.
But I think that is key to reducing the friction. And the best businesses that I've seen have that down to a T.
How important is employer brand in the industry? You know, like you see, you would have seen that Rio Tinto's putting TV ads up.
Yeah.
You know, and how great it is. Probably is great to work at Rio Tinto.
And Glencore and BHP have.
The smaller mining juniors don't invest so heavily into that. They probably could.
I think they do internally. They just don't have necessarily. They don't sing it from, you know, the rooftops as much as the big boys because they've got, you know, bigger wallets.
Yeah.
It is important, you know, and candidates do look at that, but you've got to be able to scratch beyond the surface of a brochure, and the reality, sometimes can be very different than that employer brand.
Yeah, every time I see a Rio Tinto ad or a BHP ad on TV, and I know obviously doing this and setting everything up, you're not going to be putting people in their red dirt covered bloody clothes, and it's always a nice white bloody helmet, and I'm just thinking they don't even have a bloody little bit of dirt on their boots.
And no flies on them.
I don't know how they do that. I really don't know how they do that, because there's a shitload of flies out there. But like they're building up their brand in that way, saying this is how amazing it is, and
it's all nice and shiny, and
it's not. Mining's not.
But
really
is it
nice
really
and shiny? No, but I mean, what do people want to see?
What do people want to see? For the sake of sort of repeating myself, is that honesty.
Yeah.
It's great selling a dream of what a role is going to be like when you get onto a mine site. But I think if you can be as open and honest with candidates as possible as to what it's actually like, what a day in the life is going to be. This is to a newbie I'm talking about. Yeah. Then I think you're going to set them on a stall set them on a path, of success.
Yeah.
But I think if you tell them, they're going to not have a piece of dirt on them, or come there's no flies or whatever.
50 degrees.
50 degree heat where, you're soaking wet through, and your screwdriver handle is melting. Because I've seen that as well on one of the sites.
Really?
Yeah, a friend of mine is a carpenter, and his screwdriver handle had started to melt.
Wow.
And I think he had to get changed twice during the day because he absolutely soaked himself through. Now, that's not on any brochure, is it?
No.
No.
And that would scare most people off.
I think it would, yeah.
So there's, I guess, there's honesty, and then there's, do you want people to go and work on your site?
Yeah, but equally, do you want the turnover of somebody who's turning up for one swing and then going, nah, I've had enough. So then you've got to go and find somebody again, and then again. So the attrition and all that cost. I mean, we were talking about PPE before. Yeah. You've just spent money on PPE, inductions.
Is there an average? Do you know an average cost of onboarding?
There isn't just an average cost. It all depends on the size of the company.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, like for labour hire.
Oh, labour hire. So you've got all your medicals. Yeah. So, pre-employment medicals.
What does that cost?
So that's, that can be anywhere up to, depending on what medicals they're going for, anywhere up to $500, $600. Because it's not just a drug and alcohol test. It's they can go for the full medicals. Yep. And then,
police clearance,
getting the PPE. It's over $1,000 all told. Yeah. But it's not just that, is it? When you're onboarding somebody, it's not just that, buying them those kits. But that's the investment. Yeah, so you want to make sure that person's going to stay.
Be well aware of
and I think this is where labour hire companies, struggle, because they used to be able to pass those costs on. And the big mining companies, get savvy in their contracts and say, no, this is all your cost.
Yeah.
That can impact their margins quite considerably.
Yeah, okay. Do we have any practical fixes for some of these businesses?
Yeah, good question again. Practical fixes. I think everyone's moving at such a pace. Yeah. I think sometimes just slowing down and looking at how you're going about the recruitment, and seeing what is working and what isn't. It's like engineers, whether they be in maintenance or whether they be in projects, they look at a lot of data, see if the project's going to plan or the maintenance schedules.
Following a Gantt chart.
Whatever it may be. But do they do that when they're looking at their own business, let's say, and their recruitment? Do they look at the data of, okay, well, how long did it take us to fill this? How long did the interview process take? How many vacancies have we had open for longer than 6 weeks? Those sort of things. I think if they took a look back and a step back and had took a deep breath and looked at what they could change, rather than repeating the same process and hoping something changes, that would be a first step for me. Beautiful. I think sometimes you've got to take a pause and a breath. And I think the best leaders in the industry do that. They look at their process. They look at who they want to hire, how they want to hire. And it does change depending on the circumstances and the direction the company's going in.
Mate, the last question I've got for you is obviously in regard to your business.
Yeah.
What does the next 12 to 18 months hold, do you think?
Further expansion. We moved into, over a year ago, offices in the city now.
Oh, awesome.
So we're on the Esplanade.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. In the sort of, I call it the new EY building. We want to expand the team further.
How many staff?
There's 5 of us.
Okay.
At the moment. We're looking to expand that to, in the next 18 months, ideally up to about 10 people.
Okay.
Now, whether that happens in 18 months, maybe not.
Yep.
But for now, there's the 5 of us. And we've got a couple of consultants who work for the business as well on the HR side, who are independent. But
and what do they do? What's their role?
From our HR services side, so they will go into businesses and do that sort of HR health check. So looking at their contracts of employment, because there's a lot of, that's a big time bomb for a lot of companies actually, is because there's been a lot of legislation change to Fair Work. And I think there's a lot of companies out there who think, oh, we're all right because we pay above award. But it's not as simple as that. And they could come unstuck with a wage bill if they're not careful. So we've got a couple of people who work with us who will go in and do that analysis of their contracts, the contract of employment, the processes around it, the policies, and just make sure it's fit for purpose. And then we do sort of like regular checks.
Is that for businesses that already currently have an HR team?
Some.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
Some. And some who haven't.
Checking the checker.
Yeah.
I like it.
And sometimes they want that because they've been so busy. They're busy putting out fires that they need a bit of a sanity check.
Yeah.
But a lot of the businesses we deal with are more of the SME, and sometimes it's the business owners who are coming to us saying, I haven't had time to look at this. Can you look at this for us as a little project? And we'll go in and help them with that. And I think that is probably an area where we'll expand further because you're making a critical difference to that business. You're making them fit for purpose from a legislation perspective, but also moving forward. Yeah. Sorry?
I said that's so important.
Yeah, it is, in this day and age.
Yeah. You got to protect yourself, protect your employees, and protect the business.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the way to do it.
Well, you're protecting your employees.
Yeah.
You're making sure that they're being paid correctly. You're making sure your contracts are up to date. Making sure your policies and your processes and the implementation of those works for your business.
Yep.
I think the problem is, and I'm not HR, but I think HR is just seen as admin if you're not careful within a business.
Yep.
And I think I said that before. But really, a good HR person is these days as important as any other role in a company. They're making sure that culture is right. They're making sure the employees are happy, and they're making sure that the leadership are allowed to do their role, and doing the right thing from an employee perspective and an employer perspective as well.
Yep.
And look, some companies don't have that. So it ends up the directors are doing it. The owners of the business are having to do that as well as their day job.
Exactly. And if they're not the full bottle on it, that's how you can come unstuck.
And that's where you can come unstuck.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I think that's an area where we're seeing an increase in interest in working with us and other companies, I'm sure, who provide that service. But it's a bit like risk mitigation at the end of the day. you're mitigating your risks from an employment perspective. And it's a bit of an insurance policy.
Beautiful. Well, mate, I'm sure, and I hope that people that do have watched this episode, that they reach out to you and Keystone People Solutions. It's amazing.
I hope so. I really do. And look forward to working with anyone who wants to work with us.
Hiring in WA done properly. I love that.
Thanks, Josh.
Not a problem, mate. Thanks for joining me.
No, thank you.
Thanks very much for tuning into another episode on the Gold Room podcast. I hope you liked this one, and don't forget to reach out to Nick and the team. Combining the HR and the recruitment, I think it's bloody important. Thanks very much.